So the numbers are shocking, Heidi, and that's to say the least. I mean, nearly 20 billion rand in irregular expenditure since 2012.
So I think it was losses all around for Eskom today. It was obviously a very tough day for them because since the new board came in January, they've had to face the reality of the fact that, the power utility is just not making any money. And this obviously is contributed to the fact that, as you heard, 19 billion rand in irregular expenditure. And they initially first thought it was 3 billion rand, and then we saw the chairman of Eskom coming out and saying that actually it's amounted to 19 billion rand, which is a massive number for the power utility, given the fact that they're already struggling as is. And this has all been attributed to obviously, corruption scandals and Eskom being at the heart of the so-called state capture. So the power utility is really struggling to get the Eskom back to what it was, and just to try and get it to break even, if I can put it that way, because right now it's really struggling, and there are a number of issues that the board faces. And
this situation, I imagine, is not helped by the fact that municipalities are not paying their debts.
That is exactly it. I mean, municipal debt is up by 44% in this last financial year of 2018. So that is a massive amount, and obviously they need that money to try and boost their liquidity up, because they're already facing massive liquidity challenges. And if you have a debt of 4.2 billion rand from municipalities, you need to get that money, and obviously these municipalities aren't paying them. And now Eskom needs to take serious action by cutting off electricity from these municipalities, because they need this money and they need these municipalities to pay. 44% is a big number, so they need to get that money in to try and boost their liquidity.
And if you were looking at the financials over the last few years, you will have seen that just last year, Eskom was reporting about 900 million rand in profit. Now we're talking 2.3 billion rand in losses. How do they explain that turnaround? I mean, you would have taken a bit of hope last year to say, hey, it seems we're going in the right direction, only to be, really disappointed this year.
That is it, because, I mean, the big question is, how did Eskom get to this point? And I think we need to remember that obviously there was so much corruption happening at Eskom that they didn't actually realize what was going on. Obviously you had mismanagement and poor governance at the power utility, which weren't picking that, they weren't picking up the irregularities and the irregular expenditure. So now with this new board coming in, as of end of January, obviously there's now this red light, and everybody's picking up all these irregularities and this massive net loss of 2.3 billion, which is shocking, and they're going to need to get their money up again, because right now they're coming from such a profit. I mean, who even knows if that was even a profit, because we know that the management back then was obviously part of corruption, allegedly part of these corruption scandals, so we don't know what was actually going on. And we heard Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan saying that, to put everything into context, the new board is dealing with so much, and they actually didn't realize how much they were dealing with until they started opening up all the books and started realizing what was going on.
In fact, Jabu Mabuza, the chairman of Eskom, talking about they are rattling the cupboard and more skeletons are going to come tumbling out. But what's the plan, though, Heidi? Because we can stand here and lament that it's looking bad, it's looking bad. What plan do they have to turn things around? I imagine cost containment and stabilization in terms of the leadership at Eskom. What about the issues to do with personnel, that bloated structure?
Exactly. So the bloated structure was a question that we kept pushing the board to speak on, but very little detail came out of that, because they are in the view that they're trying to deal with their workforce. I mean, a World Bank report came out saying that Eskom has way too many staff members. I think they have about 46,000 staff members, and they need to drop that down by 10,000, which is massive job cuts. And they obviously need to relook at their staff structure, because they employ way too many people, and they need to figure out how they're going to manage that, because obviously that's a major expense for the power utility, and that's obviously why they are unable to also pay for bonuses. I mean, the wage negotiations was a completely separate issue, but they need to figure out how they're going to do this. And I think they're also still trying to figure out how this is going to be, the thought out process, because there's so many issues to deal with, but they said they're trying to take it a step at a time.
Were they asked, Heidi, whether there's going to be any retrenchments at Eskom? I know that this has been a serious bone of contention because there's been speculation. You mentioned that number, 48,000 people employed at Eskom, and close to 10% of those being management.
So we did ask that question, but obviously you won't get the straightforward answer. But we actually spoke to an analyst afterwards, and he was saying the way the structure is placed at the moment, there is no way that Eskom can afford to keep all of that staff. So they are going to have to look at retrenchment processes because they have too many people working there that they actually don't need. The structure at Eskom right now does not need over 48,000 people. So they are going to have to look at ways to cut or ways to put people in certain positions and not have such a bloated staff structure.